Hello. Guess what day it is? It's Tag Tuesday.
It's Wednesday. You lied to them.
We're filming
you just lied
this
right
early.
to their faces.
Listen, they don't need to know when we film these.
Oh, yeah, it's totally Tuesday. Wink, wink. Suckers.
Anyway, it's Tag Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, Tuesday.
All right. So we were tagged in this book tag, and this is the 27 Club book tag. It was created by Celeste at Bookbound Weirdo, and we were tagged by Michael Romeo, so we are going to go through them. There are 9 prompts. As always, Sir Chong has no idea what he's doing.
Not a clue. Don't know what the prompts are.
Hasn't heard of it.
Prep work.
Yeah, so this is going to be interesting, so we'll have to see how we kind of do. I'm going to try to go through and pick things maybe that aren't the same 12 books. Maybe not Game of Thrones, just over and over.
Imagine if you went through a whole book tag without using Game of Thrones.
That's not going to happen.
Probably not.
I'm going to use something from Game of Thrones.
I'm just going to start using Game of Thrones just to be a jerk.
No. All right. So anyway.
Right before you.
The first prompt is Robert Johnson. I'm going to be honest. I am very bad with music, so I don't know who that is.
He's a guitarist, right?
Oh, I don't know.
I think he's
sure.
a famous guitarist.
So yeah, this is
People
basically.
who know he is idiot. No, he plays the cello. I'm like, oops.
This is the 27 Club, so it's famous musicians who died at 27. And I know 3 of them because I am very bad with music. So, anyway, so Robert Johnson,
He's
yeah.
no Burt Jansch.
I thought he was a blues guy. Does that sound right?
No.
Okay.
I don't know. I just feel like he's famous for the guitar, but I don't know for sure.
All right. Well, anyway, he's the Booker character. Well, his prompt is Booker character who started it all.
Oh.
So I guess he's the first person to die at 27 who was a famous musician.
Oh, well, that's not a good thing to be first at.
Well, anyway, so the Booker character started it all. So I'm guessing what they mean by this is, the Booker character that kind of started your reading journey and your life. So for me, I'm going to go with the first book I remember reading and that's was important to me. And that was the Little House series, which I read with my dad when we were growing up. And it was kind of sad recently. I was reading Killers of the Flower Moon, and they were talking about essentially taking this land from the government, taking this land from the Native Americans. And then they were as the Wilder family in the Little House series. And I was like, oh man, and it's not I didn't know, but I haven't read those since I was a kid. And I'm sure if I reread them now, I would be shocked at how offensive some of the stuff was, and just how very white focused it was, where I know isn't the most they weren't the most socially advanced people. But at the same time, it was a really important series to me because I read it. My dad, my mom worked nights when I was a very young kid. And when I liked reading, but I was still reading, picture books and stuff, and barely, I had to be, I wasn't in school yet. And so my dad every night before bed would read me a chapter of the Little House books. And so we read the entire series, 1 chapter a night while my mom was working. So they're really important to me for obviously personal reasons. But it also made me love reading because I was just wow, it's so obviously Laura Ingalls' world and life is so different than my own. And it was just something that when I was such a young kid, I was just wow, books are really cool. How you can experience other people's experiences, and you get to travel and stretch through time and place without a TARDIS. So that would be mine, I guess.
All right. Well, I don't know if this is going to count. So the first thing I can remember, I was a very, very wee lad. I don't know how old I was. Probably 3. I couldn't read yet. I could not read yet. And my mom would read me this one Amazing Spider-Man. It was Amazing Spider-Man 184.
Oh, this story.
And I remember Spider-Man battled the White Dragon. And I was so into this. I was oh my God, he's going to beat up these guys. Right? And it was great. And she'd read it to me, and then the next day I'd be read it again, and she'd be why don't we try something else? I was
Do you know what
no.
issue it was?
I just said it was 184.
Oh.
Right? And it ended in a cliffhanger. I think that was a cliffhanger for until I was I found the book, the 185, when I was 17 or something. It was a cliffhanger for me 15 years. So I couldn't read. But The only reason we even had this comic is because she got it for free in a special detergent giveaway. So it was the special all detergent giveaway issue, which is kind of rare. But unfortunately, when she was like, I don't want to read this.
Oh, yeah, it's worth $650 now.
Yeah, I don't want to read this to you anymore. So I was like, I will trick her into reading it to me. So I ripped the cover off of it. Now, I didn't know about comic books back then. I was like 3. But now even the memory is painful for me. So I ripped the cover off in an effort to trick her. And I was like, well, then why don't we read this one? She's like, that's the same book. I was like, damn it, detective woman. How do you know? So, yeah, I don't know where that book is now.
Oh, yeah, here's a 4.0 slabbed on eBay for $750.
Why are you trying to abuse me? I know it's worth a lot. I mean, look, it's not like I would have it anyway. My mom would have thrown it away with all my other stuff. I was like 3 years old. I didn't bag it, board it, and save it from 3. Or wherever the hell. Oh, what year did that come out?
Hold on. I can look at
I thought I was like 26 when it came out.
I'm looking.
You can look it right on the CGC. Just look at the label.
I'm looking. I'm saving the picture.
Just look at the label.
78.
Okay, so I was 4.
So you're not even, because it was before your 4th
All right,
birthday.
so I was 3. I was right. So, I wasn't exactly going to be
it's the first appearance of the White Dragon.
This book. But anyway, that's my first reading experience that I can remember. Me destroying a valuable comic.
Great.
To try and deceive my mom.
And then you kept reading?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know at the time. It wasn't until many years later that I looked it up and discovered that was the rare all version. And I was like, damn it.
What was the one that you covered in frogs?
That was the special Colgate, I think, giveaway.
No, it's
AIM.
AIM.
It was the AIM giveaway where he fights the Green Goblin at a dentist office, and they gave that away with AIM toothpaste, and I liked that one as well. I was really into Spider-Man, and to show how much I liked that particular book, I had these frog stickers, and I put frog stickers all over the front of the book, which again didn't really increase the value, although I think it probably should have. Frogs. I still have that book. I actually have that.
It's just covered in frogs.
It's covered in frog stickers.
I mean, does that make it more valuable?
It should. I told you. But that was later on. I was probably like 6 when I had that one. So I was able to hang on to it all these years.
All right, great. So he just tortures his comics.
Well, just the all one. My mom probably threw it away because she was sick of reading it.
And AIM. You covered that one in stickers.
Every time I'm like, let's read this again. And she's like, no, good God, no.
All right, so our next one, I have heard of this musician. This is Janis Joplin. And this is a book that celebrates the beauty of imperfection. Sir Chong, do you have a pick for this?
So Amazing Spider-Man 184.
No.
No. Imperfection.
Hold on. Okay, we're back. So I was like, I know there's a lot of books. I love imperfect characters, kind of unlikable, flawed characters, but I was like, why can't I think of any off the top of my head? So I'm going to go with, and I've used this a few times, luckily not too many times, I'm going to go with The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, because clearly this is about some of the worst people to ever exist who are awful to each other, but it also kind of is like beautiful in how like they find each other in their awfulness. So this is one of my favorite books of all time. It's very, very depressing, but like also beautiful and heartbreaking, but also depressing. Sir Chong, can you think of a book that celebrates characters who are flawed?
No, I only like perfect characters.
No, you don't. You don't like anything perfect.
Oh, right. No, I got nothing.
You got nothing.
Nothing.
You got a book. Name a book.
Huck Finn. It's not a good example at all.
Yes, it is.
But society is imperfect, and Huck is sort of at ends, at odds, I suppose, with society. And so he kind of views himself as being imperfect because he's comparing his belief systems to everyone else who's wildly racist. So the fact that he's not racist makes him wonder if there's something wrong with him, when in fact it's something wrong with everybody else, which makes for a pretty interesting social conversation.
Okay, good.
Saved it.
Good save. All right. Number 3 is Jimi Hendrix, and I've heard of him as well. And this is a book that never reads the same twice. And Sir John's going to get mad because I'm going to pick something he's probably going to go for.
You had better not pick my book.
I'm going to let him go first, just so if he comes up with what I was going to go with, I can come up with something
All
else.
right. So a book that never reads the same twice. It seems like such an obvious choice. So I'm going to pick the Newbery Award winner, the Pulitzer Prize winning, ranked by Time Magazine as the greatest book
why would I pick
of
that?
all time. It is, of course, The Badlands of Hark, which is a choose-your-own-adventure book on lands that are bad, located in Hark. And there's like 184 different endings. You only survive one of them. You die in the other 183. Very exciting stuff. Obviously, you're going to read it and you're going to get 180. Unless you read 185 times, you're not going to have the same ending twice. So this seems like a pretty cut and dry example for the left-handed genius, Jimi Hendrix.
Okay, I am going to go with, something that's not the same twice. I'm going to go with a book that I've read 1 billion times, and every time I get something new out of it, and that is Frankenstein.
Also a choose-your-own-adventure book.
No.
Oh, it's not.
Part of it's just like every single time I read this, I pick up on something new, something that's like more beautiful. I love it every single time. I just apparently only recently discovered that like there are 2 versions of it, and that could be partially why. There's the original 1818, but most people read the 1831, which is where Mary Shelley edited it to make it like less, I guess like less of an indictment against Victor. And I was like, well, I don't know what the first, because I apparently have only read, I think, the 1831, because I think that's the common one. I'm guessing, because that one's a pretty strong indictment against Victor. So I'm curious what the original's like. So now I'm like, do I need to go read it? Or like, do people over exaggerate like how much it like is different? So now I'm kind of like,
can you over exaggerate or you just exaggerate? That's the
it's
question.
hyperbole.
Right.
Right.
The Department of Redundancy Department.
Yes. So anyway, I don't know. Now I'm kind of like, I think I'm going to make a goal of like, it's not going to be this year because I have enough reading to do. But maybe my next year, my big goal will be to read both versions and kind of read them side by side and compare them.
I like to read the original Badlands of Hark, but of course it was Last to the Sands of Hark.
Yes, okay. So, all right. When you talk about how I use Song of Ice and Fire every time, you literally use Badlands of Hark. Yeah?
I've only used it, I believe, thrice, and given it's like generally considered the best piece of literary work in the history of man, I think it's not too many times.
R.L. Stine, known for being the best.
R.L. Stine is a ghostwriter on that book. The real writer is unknown. He's probably of Harkian descent.
Anyway, the next one is Jim Morrison. I've heard of him as well. And this is...
Can we see his grave?
Yeah, we've been to his grave. It was covered in lipstick.
Not from me. You can't prove anything.
Okay. So this is a book that deals with themes of death and rebirth. So do you have one in mind? Because I can...
Death and Rebirth. Well, there's Frankenstein. There's Badlands of Hark.
Okay.
Let me think about this for a bit here.
Because I'm guessing he's going to be mad that I picked this. So I'm going to go with Lovely Bones. Because it's clearly based on the idea of like dying and then like her own heaven and what we leave behind and like how the people we leave behind continue to cope with our memory and like with loss and with grief. So it's a fantastic book, and if you haven't read it, you really should read it. So I'm gonna pause.
All right, so I'm gonna go with Dandelion Wine by Bradbury. It's like my favorite writer. And this has very interesting mixture because it's very heavy nostalgia. A lot of stories of youth. But there are also like some older characters who sort of like talk about and reflect on how their youth is like gone. They would like to get it back, and maybe there's like a machine that brings it back, kind of stuff. So it's very interesting, sort of like the sort of combination of the character currently in their youth experiencing these moments that feel nostalgic, and even in that, other characters being nostalgic about their past, which is even earlier than this. It's just, man, if you like nostalgia, this is the book for you. So that's, in a way, that's like birth and rebirth to me, because like you're sort of going back to earlier parts of your life. Not necessarily death, but you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, kind of like losing things and sort of. All right, so the next one's Amy Winehouse, another person I've heard of. And this is a book or character that deserves an apology from everyone. And I had one in mind, but I'm going to use it for a different prompt. And I'm failing very badly at not using the same books over and over. But I'm using Song of Ice and Fire here because I'm going to say Sansa Stark. And the reason I'm going to say Sansa Stark is because if you watch the show Game of Thrones, or if you had read the books...
Show. She doesn't redeem herself in the book.
She's going to.
She didn't yet. She's an idiot.
But, like, how many times people are like, Sansa's so annoying. She's so whiny. She's so pathetic. I don't like her. She's unlikable. She's a 13-year-old girl. Like, give her a break. I mean, and enough with the, like, expecting a 13-year-old girl to be, like, this badass. Oh, well, Arya is. Well, who cares? Arya's like a Mary Sue. Sansa's a realistic character.
She's not a Mary Sue. If you earn the growth and you earn the skills, that's not a Mary Sue.
Well, right, but obviously George R. R. Martin's like, wouldn't it be cool if we could all be like badasses like Arya? But we're not. We're all pathetic losers like Sansa.
Yeah, and there's plenty of pathetic losers in the book, so he doesn't feel that. But Arya's a character who's completely committed to one thing, and that's acquiring all the skills needed to get murderous revenge.
Well, don't get me wrong, I like Arya.
She spends years and years doing that. That's not a Mary Sue.
Fine, but she's still, she's wish fulfillment.
That's fair.
Because
most books have some.
Most of us are not going to be an Arya. Most of us are a Sansa, who are going to just kind of go about our day and do the things we're supposed to do until we're suddenly, like, trapped and about to marry a sociopath, and then our dad is murdered. So, spoiler for you if you didn't know.
Well, fine. You know what? I'm going to use the same stinking books and the same logic. I'm going with Theon.
Yes.
So Theon
and Sansa together.
A big barrel of asshattery for, like, most of the time. And yes, most of his redemption is in the show. He hasn't really had that much redemption in the books yet. But neither is Sansa, so if she's going to cheat and use Sansa, I'm going to cheat and use Theon, because I do believe his arc is going to lead to a pretty interesting redemptive arc.
Right, and I think both of them exemplify why I think George R. R. Martin, why I like this series so much, is I think he's very good at being like, here's your Ned Stark, the paragon of, like, decency, and here's your Jon Snow, who's noble and, you know, does the moral thing in any circumstance. And here's Arya, who's a badass and who self-sacrificing. But then he also, like, loads up the book with a bunch of, like, really flawed characters like Theon and Sansa and Jimi, and who are basically normal people because we're all crap people. Because even though, like, Tyrion, for instance, is, like, really good, he's also, like, kind of a mess. So it's like he's good because, like, society has treated him so badly. He could become evil, but, like, he does a really good job of showing characters, like, how, like, they're very gray and they just, like...
Anyway, we're supposed to use Game of Thrones. We just talked about it for 10 minutes.
Okay, so moving on to Brian Jones. I don't know who that is. Do you know who that is?
No, it's not the Beach Boys guy.
That's the guy? Is that the guy from Brian's song? No, that's the guy from the played football.
Brian's song's football, yeah.
Oh, maybe it is the guy from the Beach Boys. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know who Brian Jones is.
Anyway, so this
People
is...
who like music like, these two are idiots, and I can't argue
I'm
with you.
sorry. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything. All right, so Brian Jones is a book surrounded by conspiracy theories. So with the book I was going to use that I thought everyone should apologize, I'm going to use here, and it's Catcher in the Rye.
I knew you were going to use it.
And the reason being that you should apologize to Holden because he's awesome. But anyway, there's a ton of conspiracy theories surrounding this book, and obviously, you know, because the crazy guy who shot John Lennon was carrying the book, and it's, you know, and then somebody else, I think the guy who shot Reagan was carrying the book or liked the book. Like, look, crazy people read books. That doesn't mean that the book is causing people to be crazy. Just like crazy people play Call of Duty, and not everyone who plays Call of Duty is crazy.
No tall foxes.
Right, so... It's surrounded by conspiracy theories. It's a lot of nonsense. Obviously, I mean, I've read Catcher in the Rye a billion times. I haven't tried to assassinate anyone. Or have I? No, I'm just kidding. I haven't.
You're just bad at it.
I'm so bad at it. I've never tried. I just think, you know, whatever. It's a lot of nonsense. So we should apologize to him for being surrounded by conspiracy theories. What's your conspiracy theory?
All right. So, of course, there's a very famous conspiracy around the book Dark Shores by Isaac Mungleton.
Stop making up
of everyone who reads this book, their kidneys
Can't you pick a real book?
implode. So this could be a real book.
Pick a real book.
Fine. Starlight Whimsy by
That's
Michael
not a
Schmidt.
Hold on.
All right, so 11/22/63. It's about the JFK assassination. There's a lot of conspiracies about that. Second shooter, blah, blah, blah. Grassy knoll. I don't know. I don't pay attention to conspiracy theories, but I know there's a lot of them. The real conspiracy theory about this book is how so many people like it when the ending is such a steaming pile of horse shit. That's the real question.
Say that on
How you can have such a cluster bag of ass for an ending. The laziest, most generic crap ending possible. And people are like, oh my god, the ending's amazing, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, anyway, we're moving on.
Maybe you like the ending. I don't know how. It's awful.
Okay, so
People love that book. I don't get it.
We're moving on to Alan Wilson. We don't know who that is either. Do you know who that is?
Alan Wilson. That's Mrs. Wilson's kid, I believe.
Is that... Oh, maybe Alan Wilson and...
Maybe the Wilson...
Brian. Maybe they're like the Wilson Phillips people?
The father of them?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't have a clue.
Yeah, we don't know who Alan
We know who anyone is. We know nothing about anything. Don't listen to us.
Wait, isn't Brian Wilson the guy from...
That's one of the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
But there's more than one Beach Boy.
Yeah, but I don't think they were all named Brian.
That's why there's an S on
They
the
would
end.
be the Brian boys.
Well, there could be two Brians and then like an Edgar.
Okay, anyway,
And a
so
Sven.
Alan Wilson, a book that contributed to the popularity of its genre. Okay, so I am going to...
Game of Thrones. No. No?
I hate you.
What, were you going to do Game of Thrones again?
No, I was not.
Oh, surprise.
I was going to go with something I've never done before.
Ooh. Math?
I'm good at math.
You're not good at math.
I am good. Not anymore, because I haven't used it in like decades. All right, so contributes to the popularity of the genre. I'm going to go with something by Agatha Christie, but I'm not going to go with And Then There Were None. I'm going to go with The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which I've never read, but everyone says is like her best, or one of the best. So it's on my list to read. I don't know anything about it, but I know it's really important, and it changed the face of mystery. So I'm going The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, whatever happens in that book.
All right. I was thinking about going Agatha Christie as well, but I'll go something potentially even more obvious. I'm going to go with Lord of the Rings, which is sort of like the jumping off point for all high fantasy.
Yep.
Like, if there's a book and it's got elves and dwarves and magic and dragons and all that kind of stuff, they probably ripped off Lord of the Rings. I mean, probably the most popular RPG game of all time ripped off Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean? So it's hard to say that there's too many things.
What's the most popular?
Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh,
it's
I thought
hard
you were
to
talking
think
about magic.
That probably also ripped off part of Lord of the Rings.
Mm.
But they're like not as obvious about it. But it's hard to think of a more, I don't know, clear starting point for a genre than Lord of the Rings. And people don't even try to like hide it. They're like, I've got halflings. Halfling? What you talking about? That's obviously you stole that from this dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's Hobbit. That's what that means.
No, I know.
I know. Yeah. I'm saying. I agree.
Pretty soon they're gonna be like, and this guy's Eddie Bombadil. Get out of here. Get the hell out of here.
Steve Bombadil.
Steve Bombadil.
All right. So our next one is Pete Ham.
Oh, that's me.
I don't know who Pete Ham is. And it's something that challenges the notion of loyalty. So
Lord of the Rings. Game of Thrones.
Hold on. So Chunk's going first because I'm thinking.
All right. This one I love. It features one of my all-time favorite characters in the world, and that is Othello. And of course, one of my favorite characters of all time is Iago. And one of the reasons it fits into this is because Iago is an absolute genius of making every other character think he's their absolute best friend while he's completely destroying their entire lives for the sheer joy of destroying lives. He's like, I have kind of a petty reason for revenge, but let's be honest, I just like ruining lives. He's amazing. The level of deception and like trickery and manipulation is so spectacular. I've never seen a character convince people he has their best interests in heart while he's absolutely obliterating their entire lives. I love Iago.
I just passed Othello on my list of books.
Wow, you're fast.
And okay, I have one.
Like in really good shape.
I have one that's gonna way go out there. That's all, like I'm really going back now.
Oh, good. Something different. So is it Game of Thrones? Or?
It's not Game of Thrones. It's Paradise Lost. Which is...
Based famously on Paradise City by Guns N' Roses. Right?
No.
He didn't base Milton wasn't a big GNR fan? Or?
He was not.
Oh.
Anyway.
I've been given wrong information. Let me consult my notes.
I think so. So Paradise Lost, for those of you who don't know, is an epic poem written in the, 16th century, 17th century, something like that, 15th century, I don't know, a long time ago.
It was the 1600s.
Was he after? Sure. He was after Shakespeare, right?
I think a little bit. So I think he's still 1600s though.
Yeah, so 17th century. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was after Shakespeare. Yeah, because it was Chaucer, Shakespeare, then Milton.
Lucifer was a pretty good character.
So
Lucifer. So that dumb guy who flies into the sun. I forget his name.
Icarus?
No, Abuda. No, it's not Icarus.
Oh, you mean Paradise Lost?
In Paradise Lost.
I don't remember.
I forget his name.
But obviously, there's a couple stories here about loyalty. So there's Lucifer questioning God's authority and questioning God's decision making, which is what leads him into like being in hell. All the demons, whether they should be loyal to Lucifer now that they've been cast out, or if they should try to like work their way back into God's good graces. And then obviously Adam and Eve, and should they be loyal to God, or should they question authority and, eventually lose paradise and, destroy mankind.
You know who's hot? Beelzebub.
Anyway.
Fly-headed people.
But look, if you're a religious person, I get it. You probably will be offended by Paradise Lost. But if you're not a religious person, or if you are a religious person who's also okay with not everything having to be related to religion and being able to kind of separate art and stuff, you should totally read this if you've never read Paradise Lost. I know it sounds ridiculous because it's pretty much considered one of the most important works of all time in literature. But, I don't think a lot of people read it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, first of all, it's fairly long. It's a difficult read.
Yeah, it's not the easiest poem.
So it's written in fairly complex language. It's in cantos, I believe, right?
Yeah, something like that. One of the, whatever the British version, stanzas or whatever.
No, I think it's cantos. These sort of chapters that are, connected, but then they don't always clear how they connect to the next one. But it's fascinating characters, great stuff. Obviously, it's beautifully written.
Yeah, and if you...
But people will read, some excerpts, so they'll read, a translated version, but the actual thing is worth reading. I read part of Paradise Found. Sounds like a fake book, but it's actually...
Yeah, I don't really have a lot of interest. I've actually read two things by Milton I really like. Paradise Lost and Areopagitica, which if you're really a fan of, the arguments against censorship, Areopagitica is really good, but, now we're getting into, super nerdy English major stuff. So, but if you don't want to read Paradise Lost, or if you're really intimidated by it and want to read an easier version that's still super thought provoking, but disguised in a kid's book with cute animals.
Paradise Under the Bed?
No, His Dark Materials, which is essentially
I think it's actually longer than Paradise Lost.
It's way longer, but it's a lot easier to read, obviously. But at the same time, it's kind of the anti-Narnia. So if you loved Narnia growing up, but then as you get older and you're kind of oh wait, this is a lot of religious propaganda, and you kind of want to move away from this is atheist propaganda. So you can kind of see both sides of things. So, but yeah, it very much ties to the plot and it's connected. It's basically Paradise Lost mixed in with dark matter and astrophysics.
Let's get going.
Anyway, but I'm gonna go with Paradise Lost. All right, and then our last one is Kurt Cobain, and I know who he is because obviously I was a '90s kid. And so Kurt Cobain, this is a book that could pass as an old worn sweater, but is really a legend. So what I read that as is something that at face value seems just comfort food, but is really impactful, meaningful, significant book. Do you have one off the top of your head?
I guess.
Okay, so he's gonna go first.
The obvious choice, which I'm not gonna pick here, would be of course Badlands of Heart. But instead, I'm gonna go with a book that, if you were to describe it to someone, would probably think it was a cutesy, simple children's story. But it's actually got a ton of subtext and symbolism and tragedy, and it's terrifying in parts and it's sad in parts.
Are you being silly here?
No, it's Watership Down.
Oh yeah,
which is legit. It's about a bunch of rabbits having to flee across the country to find a place to live, and all the characters, almost all the characters are rabbits. There's a few other ones. There's like a seagull, and like there's like a couple of cats and stuff. But for the most part, it's all rabbits, and like you might think, well, this is not going to be a serious story, but no, it totally is. The characters are amazing. The adventure is amazing. The tragedies are tragic. It's fantastic. Again, yeah, you think story about a bunny, simple, cheesy, for kids. No, amazing, lots of detail, fantastic.
I should have kept His Dark Materials for that, huh?
No, you should not.
But what I'm going to actually go with, also sort of on the surface, seems like it might be just like a fairly simple, fairly like not lighthearted, but fairly easy. And it's kind of stuck in children's book sections in bookstores, and it's The Book Thief, because it's
not for kids.
It's not for children. But like the main character is very young, and so for a long time it was put in like literally in kids books. Then it was moved to middle grade. Then it I think it now has found its place in YA. But it's not a YA book. Like, it's very,
it's literary fiction.
Yeah, it's very strong literary fiction. But because of the fact that you have a young character, this is common, though. Like, To Kill a Mockingbird's considered, like, YA. Like, I mean, if you were going to use that, The Lord of the Flies, then, Huck Finn, those should all be YA, because they're all, technically surrounded. But I think when people see Book Thief, they see that it, like, it was published fairly recently. They open it, and the writing doesn't seem very complex or hard to read.
It is like 550 pages, though. So
yeah, but it's phenomenal. And, like, it's what's kind of nice about it, and the reason I think it actually hits that, like, legendary status, is what's good about it is it is accessible. So if you were to teach it in, like, middle school or high school, or give it to a middle school or high school reader, and, like, content-wise, if they were comfortable with, like, the darkness, because it's about World War II.
I taught it in 9th grade, I believe.
Yeah, so if you were to, like, but if, obviously you'd want to make sure that the person was mature enough to deal with the content, but if they were okay with, like, the content, it reads pretty easily, but it's also, like, exceptionally beautifully written. It's very accessible, and it deals with some, like, major themes, but in a way that, like, is very, like, easy to connect to, I think, as well. Not just, I mean, obviously as an adult it is, but I think if you read it, like, it's an easy read in terms of, like, while it's very poetically written, it's not overly complicated in terms of vocabulary, structure. Like, it's a pretty breezy read. I mean, it's not if you want to just enjoy how beautiful it is. But yeah, I think it, like, comes across as maybe just, like, a nice kid's World War II book.
It's such a lighthearted, friendly romp.
Yeah, but narrated by Death.
Yeah, and it's, like, so dark.
Yeah, it's very dark. But it's, like, comforting looking. And it is accessible. So I think it's tricky. Because it does feel like it might be, like, a nice, cute book. And it is not. So, yeah, so those are ours. Sorry we're bad with music. We'll research who these people are and, like, educate ourselves.
We won't.
No, we will.
I will.
Well, I will, and
okay,
then
you have fun.
I will, and tell him who they are.
I'll ignore.
Anyway, and then
all right, yeah, that's that. We're done. Yeah, we're done.
Okay, bye.
Boop.